Hello, I'm Donna Rodriguez. Welcome to the Silver Lake Regional School Committee candidate interview. I want to take a moment to thank our candidate for participating in this interview and collaborating with PAC TV to bring this informational programming to residents and voters this election season. Let me explain the format. We will be conducting a one-on-one interview-style Q&A format with each candidate, lasting about 30 minutes. Responses will not be timed, and follow-up questions may be asked during this format. We aim to ask up to 4 questions, but that will depend on the length of the responses, along with any follow-up discussion during this exchange. Candidates will be allowed to address anything not covered or that they would like to add clarification to at the end of the interview in their closing remarks. Let's get started. Today we're speaking with Jeanne Coleman, one of the 3 candidates for the Silver Lake Regional School Committee in the Kingston Town election. Jeanne, thank you so much for joining us today.
Thank you for having me.
Well, let's get right into the questions. Tell me, what do you believe is the role of a school committee member?
All right, well, thank you for asking. The school committee actually has 3 designated roles, and I'm currently a school committee member serving in Kingston. I have been for 5 years, and I'm currently the vice chair. The 3 roles of the school committee member are to set the budget, hire the superintendent, and to set policy for the district. So I believe that in collaboration with other colleagues on the committee, it's important that we all stick to our roles as school committee members and do our best to, I think, fulfill our duties as school committee members.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Moving on to the next question, how do you view the role of committee members to balance the needs of their individual town with the needs of the other towns within the district, particularly when the needs might not be in line or especially in regard to budget decisions?
Right, and that actually is going on right now in the Silver Lake Regional District. Plimpton has a positive budget this year, and Halifax is really kind of struggling this year to fund their school budgets. And in Kingston, we have a very pro-school budget community, but at the same time, we want to make sure that we're meeting all of the needs of all of our students. So in doing so, the towns first are the ones that typically reach out and say, this is where we need the budgets to come in, and then the school committee members are working to figure out what that means in terms of whether there's going to be budget deficits or unfortunately cuts, or what programs can be brought into the budget. So this year I know that Silver Lake had a much more complex budget season this year because they were trying to keep it at a respectable 3.5%, 3%, 3.5%, and Halifax is really struggling. So I think that it's important as a regional district to understand the needs of all 3 towns, and I think that being on the K-6 elementary committee, it's really been eye-opening how our budgets are built and where the state and the federal government kind of lacks funding for schools. And it's just not a simple formula. It's very complex, and the circuit breaker, even fully funded, is only 75%, but that's 75% of an overage amount. And it's,
could you talk a little bit about what the circuit breaker is, just so people understand?
Thank you. And I was hoping I could get into that today, because this is one of those things that I feel like I could almost talk ad nauseum to.
Well, just in relation to this question.
Right.
Just to define it,
but
you can talk about it later too.
Of course. The circuit breaker is the funding that the state gives us back for education plans that are over a certain amount of dollars. And in Massachusetts, I believe that amount is between $48,000 and $52,000. That is considered a like a general education amount for a child for school spending. And over that, the state will reimburse up to 75% of the costs. So it's complex in that a child could have a $100,000 IEP, and that child's entitled to that education, and the town really ends up paying a large amount towards that child's education. So until we get some of those, I guess, formulas fixed, then it's really hard to look at education as a one-size-fits-all, because it's not. Every child's entitled to a free and appropriate education, and for some, that's a much higher amount than others. And it's really difficult to find that balance when the funding formulas
Now,
are broken.
within the district, beyond, because budget, of course, is a huge issue,
Yes.
that you would have to manage amongst the towns within the district.
Yes.
How do you see the best way to work in general with other members of a district if you were on this committee, when you might not always, your towns might not always have the same needs?
Right, and I think that brings up an important point. Sometimes the towns can't always agree because, for instance, the needs of Plimpton this year aren't, well, their needs are just as high, but their budget is in better shape than Halifax. So how do you say to your constituents in Plimpton, I'm sorry, we can't do this even though we could afford it. We have to consider the needs of Halifax and Kingston as well. So it's really, it's complex. I think listening to all sides of the issue, and especially seeing all of the budget, the numbers. Our administrators have been very good about presenting exactly what the budget looks like and where the figures are. So you can see this is version 1, and if we make these cuts, this is what is coming off. Typically, it's not going to be the reading, writing, and arithmetic. It's going to be those enhancements to our schools and the things that our children really look forward to going to school.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
So, due to the rising costs of attending college as well, many students are looking to the trades after high school. What are your thoughts on growing and or expanding the CTE program to address this need in the district?
I love our CTE program, and our introduction to Kingston schools actually came because in 2012 we hosted an exchange daughter from Brazil, and she went to Silver Lake Regional High School as a junior. And one of the days I dropped her off after her physical or something, and I picked up an application for the preschool program for our then 3-year-old, who's now 12. But I picked it up and I said, oh, I remember this from when I was in high school down in Virginia. We had a preschool program. And so we put him into the lottery. He got accepted, and that was our introduction, really, to the Kingston schools, to Silver Lake, was through the CTE program. And when our son attended, and then our 2 daughters also attended the CTE program preschool, and they got to do so many fun things. They got to go visit the carpentry program to go make boxes for Christmas presents for parents or grandparents. They got to go visit the kitchen and make desserts, and they got to go trick-or-treating across the school. It was such a wonderful program that our children were involved with. And I really think that it was a cool introduction, kind of on the flip side, to those programs. The automotive program, I know that one of my friends mentions all the time, if you have an older car, definitely take advantage of the automotive program for repairs, because you're paying the cost of parts, but you're not paying for the labor, and those children are learning in return. So I think that it's very important that we stay current, like as we move towards, we're in the industrial revolution, the 4th industrial revolution right now, that we stay current with what we're offering, because I know that we now have the CNA program. The kids can come out of high school and go right into a career. And I think that that's extremely important. My husband is a graduate of the vocational high school in Weymouth. He's a carpenter. And I think that it's extremely important to keep our trades at the forefront of what we're offering in our building, so that children do know that they have something that they can fall into if they're looking for something other than college. And I think that our CTE program is strong, and I'd like to see it continue to be a strong program. A few years ago, the superintendent and I attended a school resource officer meeting at the new Plymouth South High School, and the building had just opened up, and some of the offerings there are just incredible. They have a studio that's probably as large as this one. They have a huge bay. I think it's like 2 floors, the automotive bay, and it's super neat to see that other schools are offering just as many things as well. There's a bank in their school. There's a cosmetology department in their school. They also have the CNA program. So it's great to kind of see what other high schools have and see what Silver Lake has as well.
Excellent. Thank you so much. How will you manage decision making when there really is no simple or clear-cut decision to be made? knowing that whatever you decide, some constituents are going to be disappointed or even in complete disagreement?
This is, I think, directly relevant to what we just dealt with the last couple of years through the pandemic. Every decision we made felt like a catch-22. You weren't going to please everyone, and I think that a lot of the time, my decisions, I know, they came out very passionate, maybe even aggressive at times when I was advocating for the needs of all of our students. And I think the most important thing is that you're looking at all sides of the issue and you're doing your research. So I sat through an additional probably 12 hours of health and safety meetings, and additional several subcommittee meetings where I was really truly seeing that our schools are safe. We're not seeing school-to-school transmission of the virus. We weren't seeing reasons that our kids couldn't be in school 5 days a week. And I think that once you have that information, then you just have to present it, and you have to be good at making your argument and justifying, this is the reason why I'm so passionate about this, and this is the reason that I'm speaking up and speaking out on getting our children back to school 5 days a week, or removing the masks so that our youngest students, especially those with speech issues or needs, can see the person that they're learning from, and they can see the mouth, and they can see those words being formed, and just things like that. I think it's important to look at all sides of the issue and then understand that some people are going to disagree with you, and it's part of taking on a role in this kind of position is to get some negative feedback or to even have someone vehemently disagree with you. And I'd like to think that I've gone about it in a respectful way. I respect all of my constituents, regardless of whether we agree 100% or not. And I encourage them to reach out to me, especially if there's something that we disagree on, because I'd like to understand where they're coming from. And I think it's important to listen to people.
Thank you. So also, with the challenges of social media in today's world, how will you respond to or manage seeing debate on social media platforms where decisions made by public employees are often discussed or criticized?
It's a good question. I think that we need to take that into consideration to some of the things that our teenagers nowadays are facing on social media. I know that my son is only 12, but several of his classmates have already had situations on social media that are very negative, and it's just not the same as when we were growing up, and it's really hard to kind of, there's no guidebook for how to really go about handling social media with children, and then even as other adults are learning to use social media and trying to get a point across. And one of the biggest, I think, downsides to social media is it's tone deaf. Anytime you write something on an internet page, it may not be perceived as you intended it to be. So it's important to then listen and say, how did I come across? If I actually offended somebody, what did I do wrong? And then taking the accountability and saying, oh, they might have thought that maybe I meant this when I actually should have probably phrased it this way. And I think that because of that tone deafness, it's easy to kind of jump on each other's words and say, well, you're implying this, and that's not always the case. And I think that children are learning from their parents, and they're learning from other members in society. So we need to be careful that what we're putting out there is something that we're proud of and that we are okay with our children seeing. And I think that just having, like, my son is on some social media platforms. He follows a lot of the Red Sox and the Tampa Bay Rays. And it's funny just to kind of see where some kids trickle to. Meanwhile, my daughters are on Snapchat and they're putting up their cheer videos and everything else. And I have to look and try to find that balance, saying, it's a good thing and it's great that you're connected to your friends, but be careful what you're putting out there because it might not come across as you want it to. So,
thank you very much. So, what you decide during your time on school committee will definitely affect students of tomorrow. How far into the future do you look to see the impact you could make as a school committee member?
I think that's a great question, because when I first joined the school committee 5 years ago, when I first ran for the school committee 5 years ago, it was because I wanted to be involved with my children's education. And albeit a little bit selfish in that regard, saying, I want to be involved. I mean, it's the same reason I joined the PTO, and it's the same reason I went on school field trips, because you want to be involved. You want to find something that kind of connects you to what your children are doing. But then once you do get involved, you get to see the whole picture, and you get to see that it's not obviously just my children's education that I'm responsible for. I'm responsible for everyone's education. And even though none of my children yet are interested in playing an instrument, it was important for us to bring back the instrumental music program for Kingston Intermediate School. And, you know, I was in the band for many years growing up, and I just thought, oh man, if we do this now, then in a couple of years, my kids can take part in the band or get to learn how to play an instrument, and that's great. And then the time came, and they were just like, yeah, right, Mom, like I'm all set. Like, I don't want to do that right now. But at the same time, it's great to see what the band program has done. They just had a recent concert at the high school, and I look at some of the pictures that came across social media especially, and I'm saying, this program is growing. You're seeing the direct impact of a decision to bring back instrumental band, which was a little bit controversial at the time because it's a program that needs to be sustained. It's a budget item. And to see the benefits of a program like that, and to see the benefits of having a fully funded budget, or feeling like, okay, the needs of our children are being met, then you get a, you know, in turn, like the sixth grade celebration, or the sixth grade graduation, excuse me, prior to the pandemic, they had a sixth grade graduation every year, and school committee members were invited to hand out citizenship awards. And it's just really great to kind of see the positives of being involved with the committee, and seeing the real upsides of the schools here in Kingston.
Thank you. Thank you. So you now have 2 minutes for your closing remarks, and you can touch upon any subjects you feel you haven't been able to talk about yet. Tell viewers and residents a little bit more about yourself, and share your reasons for your candidacy.
Okay, well, I'd like to read one, if that's okay. I'll try
Absolutely.
not to read it, but at the same time, I just don't want to stumble over too many of my words.
Absolutely.
So, hello, Kingston. My name is Jeanne Coleman, and I'm one of the candidates for the Kingston seat on the Silver Lake Regional School Committee on Saturday, April 23rd. I believe that my experience, knowledge of our district, and dedication to all children and families make me the most qualified candidate for this board. Over the past 5 years, I have served as member of the Kingston School Committee, and I'm currently the vice chair. I have served on the Health and Safety Subcommittee, Negotiation Subcommittee, Administrative Review Subcommittee, Policy Subcommittee, the Joint 31 Union Subcommittee. I have been on the search committee for 3 principals, our superintendent, and our assistant superintendent. And I've worked alongside our administration in the district office, our school administration, and my colleagues on both the Kingston School Committee and the Joint 31 Union Subcommittee to advocate the needs for all students in the Silver Lake District. Throughout this time, I believe we have passed fair and balanced budgets each year. We have strengthened our special education programs within Kingston and brought back instrumental music at Kingston Intermediate School. I chose to run for school committee 5 years ago because I believe in the value of public education. Our 5 children are in Kingston Elementary, Kingston Intermediate, and our son is now at the middle school. I have learned the complexity of our district as both a parent and as a school committee member, and believe that my understanding of our district brings a strong voice to the table. We have wonderful schools in our district, and I truly believe we all want the best education possible for all children, as they deserve no less. If elected, I will continue my term with Kingston and feel it would benefit our district to have a connection between the Kingston School Committee and the Silver Lake Regional School Committee. Due to my experience on the Kingston School Committee, I can hit the ground running immediately. Thank you for your support, and I urge you to please vote on Saturday, April 23rd. Thank you.
Thank you, Jeanne, for participating in this interview, and also we wish you the best of luck in your campaign and in the election.
Thank you very much.
For our viewers, thank you for joining us. If you're interested in watching replays of this interview, please visit our website, pactv.org/elections, for replay times and online viewing options, including PAC-TV's on-demand and streaming service, PAC-TV Prime. And please make your choices heard by voting in the election on Saturday, April 23rd. Thank you, and good day.